it's time to bring in Daniel Sperry, our friend from the Kansas City Star, because dude's been kind of busy. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you as well. Yeah, it's been pretty busy lately, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bring you in on multiple fronts because we have to talk sporting, we have to talk current, and there's stuff to talk about on the field and off the field and all the things as we get ready with folks now going into training camp and all of this. I will let you call it. Are we? Where do you want to start? Do you want to start sporting or do you want to start current?
Let's start with the current, because I think sporting's got a lot more to it in everything that's going on over there. So,
all right. So as we are traditionally, and we are glad that you are of this as well. We believe in chivalry first. So being these chivalrous sorts that we are, let's talk current. And it was. Then we'll go. Yes, proper hydration. That's always good. We believe in that too.
yes.
You have a team that was absolute gangbusters in the NWSL, and I mean it was a horizon job. As for those who watch the America's Cup like I do, it was a horizon job. Literally, you're looking at the other boat, and they are like 3 markers ahead, and it is nuts. And then injuries happen late in the year, and they get bounced, and then Vlatko goes upstairs, and then you're trying to figure what was the end of the season like. I guess we'll go end of season. We'll go great regular season, injuries, postseason, booted, Vlatko upstairs. What was that all about? What was that like?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think what has interested me in this is like trying to figure out why the choice now to do it. I think for the most part, the current felt that what they had in place, had started to put into place, was a very stable system that should survive any one person. And I think that is something that Sporting Kansas City, which we'll talk about later, never did under a guy as brilliant as Peter Vermes. Because sooner or later, what's going to happen in the NWSL and what happened in Major League Soccer was you are going to have to get out of this early part where the team manager and the GM are the ones who but mostly the team manager does everything, right? And Vlatko was everything in terms of the final decision maker on all things soccer. He was the head coach of the first team. There is scouting things that he has to be a part of. There's this that he has to be a part of. There's team meetings that he has to be a part of. There are so many things. And so when you as a club are kind of embarking on this like global brand thing, where the current did buy a team over in Norway, and I'm sure they will attempt to buy more women's pro soccer teams around the U.S. or not around the world eventually.
NCOs is the thing, man.
Yep, it is. And that is, but they also are in a spot now where they've kind of created this like whole multi-club system locally, where the youth clubs are kind of feeding, or in an alliance that's kind of feeding in towards the current and towards a KC Current Academy. Okay, so now we're starting to build an academy model that doesn't exist in the NWSL. So now the sporting director thing is just more than like, let me pick the players I want for the first team and you go figure out the contracts, GM. It is, whoa, I got to manage a lot of this and manage style of play across these kinds of things. And so I think that kind of enticed Vlatko, that idea of kind of embarking on a never done before project, because let's face it, he has done everything you can do as a coach, as a head coach in women's soccer. Outside of lift the Women's World Cup, he has won a head coach of the year multiple times. He's won an NWSL Shield now. He has won multiple NWSL championships. He has coached the women's national team. He's done pretty much everything you can do as a women's soccer coach in the US right now. So I think the idea, the move enticed him, and it opened up and kind of led to where we are now, where he is up above, and Chris Armas is, of all people, is coaching the Kansas City Current. It's a bit of a whiplash, I think. I don't won't even attempt to like claim that I saw it coming, because it's absolutely ridiculous to see any of this coming. I was as stunned as the next person when the report came and a phone call came from the Current about what was going on. But I see the vision. I kind of understand it. I'm interested in how this head coaching thing's going to work out more than I am worried about anything else that's going on at the club at the moment.
So, and we were looking at, well, since you mentioned Chris Armas, I'll go here before I have player discussion. So, we thought it was an interesting jump for Armas to go from Major League Soccer, and we were kind of sitting there going, okay, well, you're wondering if Colorado would have been patient enough with Armas, then you would have gotten that, but they decided they didn't want to. So Chris Armas goes to the NWSL. Well, I mean, that's an interesting vibe that you're looking at there. Seeing a named coach in Major League Soccer go to the NWSL for the team that everyone is chasing after off the top.
Yeah, and I think he was interested in it, and I think as he got more and more, as what we've heard from him, as he got more and more involved in the process, he really wanted to be a part of what was happening. And there are on the field fits that I think work really well. The off the field fit as a coach for women's soccer who has never coached women's soccer is a valid question mark. Not to say it can't work, not to say he won't figure it out and all of that, but it is something that is kind of stunning. And so it surprises you. He does have some women's soccer experience. I think he talked recently on the Soccer Wise podcast that he was interested in college soccer as well, and had kind of applied into the men's at Penn State and applied into a few other things. It was just kind of intriguing to him. But the way this opportunity unfolded for him, I think it was something that he felt he couldn't pass up, in terms of he's coming into a place, and he kind of admitted this is the first place he's come into where the team is the top dog. Like everywhere else, the Red Bulls are the Red Bulls, right? In terms of at the time he took them over, yes, they were the top dog, but are they the top dog organizationally, right? Like they're not in. Whoever's coaching that team is not very well in control of that roster, for the most part, and has Red Bull from Germany and Austria kind of projecting what they think this team in New York should be doing back down to them. He goes to Colorado, where Colorado has been a dumpster fire for a couple of years, and immediately takes him to the playoffs and spent 2 weeks. In the entire 2 years, the Colorado Rapids were only out of a playoff spot for 2 weeks, and that was the 2 weeks that knocked him out at the end of the season. And he ends up without the job sticking there, and he had to do a lot to not only get them to invest the right way. He comes into a place that's already saying we're already going to invest heavily for players. We have very good global scouting. We are the best team in the league by right now a long shot, at least were last year on paper. And so he comes into a project that is the roster's kind of going a little bit of I wouldn't say an upheaval, but there's like a little bit of change going on at the bottom end of the roster that's bringing in a lot of new depth and new faces. But for the most part, 9 of 11 starters that were back from the best team in NWSL are going to be back this season, eventually, and they will also have another player that wasn't starting that probably would have been a starter on at least 8 or 9 other NWSL teams that's going to be taking one of those starters that left spot. So really 10 of 11 high quality players from the team that just set the points record. I think he's hit roster wise, he's set up for success. And so all it's going to come down to is whether or not he learns the nuances and kind of understands the way the NWSL is in how it differs at times from the men's league, and different tactical choices might need to be made later in games because of how the NWSL is than how you would do it in the MLS. And so those kinds of things will present those challenges, and it'll be interesting to see how he navigates them.
Is there any kind of an update on Timo Shawinga? Because I know that the news wasn't good that came out recently where she may not be ready from match day 1 coming up this season.
Yeah, so what happens in the NWSL is what they can do at the end of the season, they can be placed on season-ending injury list. If you are placed on the season-ending injury list at the end of the season, or you start the season on it, you can come off whenever you want. when those players are on the ending injury list, there is cap relief from that player's contract, and there is other things. So when a player's injured like that, go at the end of the season, they can roll it over into the beginning of the season for some contract and salary cap and roster type things that they can then eventually trigger kind of later when the player is ready to come off. So there are benefits to it. If a player goes on the season ending injury list in the middle of the season, there's like a certain amount of days that they must stay on, kind of like what's the old baseball, like 100-day or 60-day DL kind of a thing,
Yes. Yeah.
like a thing. So there's like a minimum number of days that they have to stay on, but not when they start the season on SEI. So both her and Michelle Cooper are on season-ending injury list. They will come off. I don't know how close to the beginning of the season, and if it may be a week or two into the regular season that they come off. But I would be stunned if we're like approaching April and they're not off the list. That would be stunning. I think Temwa's injury was more just kind of pain management, and I don't think it's something that she just needed surgery. She just needed more rest, and they couldn't get her rest as much as they wanted to, or didn't get her enough rest as much as they wanted to in some of those moments. So ultimately, I think she'll be fine. Cooper's injury is the one that is interesting because of the foot. Don't know exactly what that is, and whether that is that a stress fracture that she was dealing with, what exactly was going on there. So just we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think Chewinga and Cooper will be fine eventually. It might be, we match day 3 or something like that they eventually come back into the fold. We'll see.
Okay, let's turn the page to Sporting. And Sporting has a new coach who is not new to Major League Soccer circles. Is Rafa Vicky? Is he as stone cold staring as we get from Peter Vermes? What do we expect? What do we expect from Rafa Vicky on the touchline?
He has that like intense jawline, that's for sure. I mean, he's got a look that'll kind of stare you down in a way. But I think he is an interesting coach. A lot of players that have played for him have loved playing for him. And one of Sporting KC's players that was actually on that U17 national team that Vicky coached was Gianluca Busio, and Busio used to rave about him as a coach, come back from camps and talk about how he liked playing for him. And so I think players like him, and players like working with him. I think he is very intent on getting everybody bought in, and does a good job of doing that from top to bottom of the roster, and kind of getting everybody pulling in a single direction. Whether that direction is going to work is probably the big question mark. But I think he's a good man manager. He's good for Sporting right now because they've got a lot of kind of young players that could be at the point of emerging into really solid pros, and maybe even something beyond that on this roster. And I think that's something that he's done really well in Switzerland. And as this league has changed over time, it's good for those players to get some of that experience. If you recall his time at Chicago, Gaga Slanina came through, Brian Gutierrez, who just went down to Chivas, started to come through, and he was pushing and giving him minutes and stuff like that. So Sporting has a couple of interesting youngsters that are sort of breaking into that first team that I think he fits really well. And then, I also, you just have to look at the situation, right? Chicago Fire at that time, especially, was just the Chicago Fire, right? It was a kind of a laughing stock in a way.
You should have just called them the Chicago Dumpster Fire.
It could have been, for sure. And I think David Lee is a very more than competent and capable person in charge of soccer operations, and he gets money too coming in here, which I think I don't know if that was necessarily part of the hiring process and part of the discussion, but I am sure some hints were made that you are going to have a good financial backing to have good players that will make an impact on this roster. So that all the developments off the field, I think, kind of help him probably have success in the long term here in Kansas City. And I think I don't know how long it'll take, how long he will end up staying, but I do think that he's kind of the right guy at the right time, I think, for Sporting and the direction that they're trying to pull right now.
Daniel Sperry, Kansas City Star, hanging out with us for the first time in a while. We will discuss the lid that he is wearing at the end of the segment because that was the last time that he was on with us. It was very, very new in the process for him. We will ask him about that as well. So David Lee at the press conference says, yeah, we're looking at like double-digit acquisitions, 10 to 12 new dudes coming in. I mean, once everybody's jaw, I imagine, was brought up off of the press conference floor, it's like, okay, that's an ish load of turnover. What is that going to look like? Any clues?
Well, they need defenders and midfielders, really. I mean, that's kind of where they're at. They've already made one acquisition, of course. If you saw, Calvin Harris was signed last week as a free agent. I think he brings, I know it's funny, I say they need defenders and midfielders, and they brought in a attacker kind of a player, and I was like, great, way to go. We need wingers, right? This guy, yeah, no, he fits a need for some speed and athleticism up top, which Daniel Shalhoub, great player, very technical, very crafty. He's not a burner, and neither is Dejan Joveljic. I think it's just something different than the typical cut inside, look for my shot, left-footed right winger that Sporting have had for a long time, and I think he's someone that will actually, in the long run, kind of be good for Joveljic, and the type of spots that he can get to and the type of service that he can provide will be good for the ultimate poacher in Joveljic there. So that's a good signing. There have been reports out of Peru that they have finalized a deal with a left back. His name's Cesar Inga, and he's kind of made his full integration. He's 23 years old, made a good integration into the Peruvian national team, had a really strong year at Universitario, which is the major club down there in Peru. And it seems like he is heading to Sporting Kansas City. It's not quite as done as it might be reported in Peru, but I would be stunned if he didn't end up with an announcement probably later this week on him. But he's a really strong defender, left back. And then I think it'll be about getting some experience onto that back line. I think they need a couple of defenders. They've got a few MLS previous defenders in their training camp. Ethan Bartlow from Houston Dynamo is probably the one with the most match appearances. That's intriguing, as well as a guy named Wyatt Meyer from Nashville SC. But yeah, I think they're looking for someone that can kind of play on the left side of that back line, left footer. And so I'd be interested to see what they bring in, but they have multiple U22 initiative slots open too, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they use them in the midfield, and maybe try another premium one on the attacking side. I wouldn't be surprised though if they do start with 2 and 3, because they will. David Lee has been very, very vocal about them going with the 2 and 4 model in general, just for the allocation money. But if they just go 2 and 3, they don't put it on themselves to make 4 U22 signings, which is pretty difficult in trying to make that many already. Also gives them the flexibility come the summer window that if they're sitting in a spot that they really like and they say, okay, this DP from the World Cup just became available, we can pull this trigger. We don't have to boot anybody off the roster. We get him in and we're good to go. So I don't think they will kind of fully fill up that load, but I for sure expect at least a couple of U22 signings as part of this crop in this window. So they've got to get active, but I think they still have a good couple of weeks here where they can be active and push things through.
And you're discussing a defense that, when you look at goals allowed, they are the only team in Major League Soccer last year. And I admit it was close, but it's a number that you're attracted to. That started goals allowed with a number 7. 70 goals allowed last season and only scoring 46. So that's basically what a goal and a half scored and 2 goals allowed per match last year.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so, yeah, then they signed Calvin Harris. Yeah, so I see where you were. I mean, what was it like last year watching Sporting play, where it was the horrendous start, and it was almost like you're stepping on a rake, and then it's like the Schleprock black cloud is following them everywhere, finding ways to lose, kind of like LAG was at points. I mean, what was it like last season with this group where, 7 wins total and you lose 20 out of 34?
It was tough. I mean, I think that it kind of took a toll, but I think because there were so many players coming off the books, I think there was just a lot of question marks too. Like by the end of the season, I think when it was clear that they were out, I mean, you could kind of tell who was in on staying and who was ready to get out. And it's just is an odd spot to be in, especially for a club like that. That's just kind of feels like they're kind of wasting a year away at times. But then you have players who are going to be around long term that are pulling really hard in that direction forward. And I think that's something that like it was just an odd mix. And I wouldn't say the locker room was ever lost in a way, because dudes still enjoyed each other. There wasn't a whole lot of fighting and bickering and stuff like that. I think they just kind of recognized they were where they were. But there was a stretch there, from when Peter got fired to, I think it was that they started having to play. It was a stretch of like, here's Vancouver, here's Seattle, here's the Seattle again on the road, here's all these really good teams. And you're like, and New York City was in there, Charlotte was in there, and there was just a stretch of like really top level teams. And they had finally won like two of their last three games, and they were within points of the playoff game with about the playoff line with around 10 games to go. And then after that, they got smoked in most of those games against the big teams. And it was kind of a bit of a pretty good reality check. The hard one, I think, was a game like San Diego. San Diego came to Kansas City and Sporting played them off the park, and yet San Diego got two really good counterattacking goals in the two moments that they needed, and Sporting couldn't put one over the line. And you're sitting there like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the difference, right? And so you could see that. I think there's a lot of good things on this roster, because at moments they really could play people off the park. There were stretches of games where I'm like, who are these guys? They're world beaters. And then, for 30 minutes, and then like, the next 15 minutes, you're just like ripping your hair out thinking, what the heck are you doing? So I think they're an interesting group that has the potential to do some really good things, especially the young players that got a lot of experience last year, like Jacob Bartlett, Jansen Miller, Ian James, as a young 17-year-old center back that you're going to hear a lot about in the next couple of years. I think just his physicality, his pace. He has all of the physical tools and is really starting to bring the intangible assets that you need as a center back at a very young age. I think he's going to be a really big prospect going forward, not only just for Sporting Kansas City, but in the U.S. youth system as well. There's a couple others that are coming through the academy that may not be on homegrown deals yet, that probably will. So there's this interesting young core that's somewhat pushing through. Jake Davis as well. John Polskamp was the youngest starter that Sporting has had at the goalkeeper position in a very long time. So there's some interesting things kind of coming through that I think will make for interesting conversations if they start making the right leaps forward in the next year.
And since you read my notes, I'm going to go ahead and skip to my last question, since you stole that question from me. All right. Last time you were here, the lid that you were wearing, and for those just listening on the audio side of things, it is a lid that has the word DAD on top.
Oh, yes.
And I believe last time you were with us, you were a new DAD, because you had a producer on for your segment when you were with us. So how old now?
So the youngest one is now 9 months.
Wow.
She is 9 months. She was born 7 weeks early, and she's absolutely killing it. She is kind of the right size as they're supposed to be. She's hit all the right growth charts and all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty happy with how that one's gone. I got this in Florida. We spent about 2 weeks in Florida over the Christmas break time, which was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Kansas City, sun, beach, warmth. I found this hat in a store and I was like, you know what? I like this. So we'll pick it up. But yeah, things are going great there. It's been a lot of fun. She is as of last night, kind of started army crawling on us. And so that means we got to go purchase gates and things for the rest of the house. Yeah. But all looking forward to it and loving the next couple of months that are ahead of us.
So do you know if she's left-footed or right-footed yet?
I don't know. It's interesting because she'll pick things up predominantly with her right hand for sure. But then as she's been crawling, she has mainly done her work with her left side,
There you
which
go.
is interesting. So we'll see. There's no lefties in our family, so I don't know where she'll get it from. So it'll be fun.
All right, so hit the promo for me for those that in between your visits here want to keep up with everything going on with current and sporting. How do they do it?
You can find me on Twitter at SperryDaniel94, I believe, and Blue Sky as well. Daniel Sperry. There, you'll find me. Yep, I'll talk about the current sporting there. You can read all my stuff at kansascity.com/sports.
What he said. Daniel, it's always great to see you, my friend, and do not be a stranger. Like I said, you know where the garage door opener is, and so you know how to. If there's anything going on the planet, you know you can crash, and we'll discuss, and we'll discuss all the things, especially as we get into season. Great to see you, my friend, and congratulations on the ambidextrous member of the family.
Yes,
the confused keepers from every way, left foot, right foot.
That's what we're looking for. Thanks, man.